Welcome back to one of the greatest games of 2021, Outriders. There has been new developer news. It's Thursday, this is September the 2nd, and there's one thing I want to talk about. I don't care about the general news, although I will quickly brush over it. The weapon mods, I'll quickly talk about them, there's only 5. Then the topic for discussion is the biggest part. Then there's patch news and ongoing list of currently tracked issues. Those bottom 2 I will be completely ignoring because I couldn't care less. Not only that, but I've already gone over them, so it'd kind of be dragging the video out, which doesn't need to be done. Before we jump into this video, if you are interested in any merch, remember it's all optional, you don't have to buy it, but it is linked in the description. I have just released a brand new design, Born to Rant. It's linked to the channel, it's linked to me ranting. I absolutely love this design, and it's going to be available on like coffee or hot drink mugs, women's and men's t-shirts and hoodies. If there's anything else, like if you want a sticker, a pillow, anything like that, then you can always let me know. And there is also other merch on the site that you can look at as well. Remember, link down below. Without further ado, let's jump into the video. So general news, again, our upcoming patches unfortunately still not ready for release. Yeah, it's kind of typical from them right now to keep delaying their updates. That's nothing new at all. They have, however, managed to bring forward and release a small number of buffs. So there is no download needed, it's a back-end server-side thing, there's no update or anything like that. You just load into the game, these things have been changed. So the weapon mods that have been buffed, Winter Blast. It's had its AoE range increased to 5 meters from 4. Ultimate Anomaly Surge had its damage increased by 137%. Claymore Torrent has had its explosion damage increased by 210%. Ultimate Storm Whip had its damage increased by 140%, and Strings of Gorse had its damage increased by 262%. That's right, from base 24.5 to now base 64. So the topic for discussion on nerfs, they want to talk to the community about nerfing things, because that's the easiest way to do it. So it says here, you may notice that a few of the above mods fall within a very particular category of mods. They're single target or cleave mods, meaning their damage potential is limited to a single enemy or a very small group of linked enemies. They'll be referred to as ST mods. So the current mod meta in Outriders centers around 3 pillars. And before we jump into this is the most ridiculous way they could deal with things. They currently need to try and bring players back. Messing around with this stuff, even putting it up for discussion, is probably going to push more people away, because the developers have let everyone know we are thinking of nerfing these things. That's not what players want to hear. They should have like talks of DLC or new content coming out by now, but they can't even do a patch on time. They constantly delay their patches. This is like, they do multiple patches, or their last few patches have had delays. I think this one and the one before have both had delays, consecutive patches being delayed. But the 3 pillars of mod meta is general AoE damage mods, Moaning Winds and Quick Cycling meta, and Fortress. So today's buffs are only their first steps towards addressing the aspect of the above mod meta which they deem to be unhealthy for the development of fun and varied builds in Outriders. They'll be making changes in future that will be aimed at disrupting the meta, but doing so in a way that opens up many more fun options and alternatives for players. Below is an overview of how they see the current situation. So Pillar A, General AoE Damage Mods. According to the player data and community observations, there's currently an over-reliance on AoE damage mods. I wonder why. It's most likely the result of the way most enemy encounters and expeditions are structured. Well done, you actually understand. Players usually face hordes of enemies against whom such AoE mods are the most efficient method of playing. AoE, Area of Effect. 1v1 or smaller mob group encounters are rare enough for the AoE mods to still do enough DPS to overcome these encounters, even though ST mods would likely be more effective here. But the one thing they're not paying attention to, AoE. It deals damage to multiple enemies. They said the way most enemy encounters in expeditions are structured around multiple hordes or mobs of enemies. This means that there's a strong under-reliance on ST mods, which is further exasperated by some of these ST mods generally underperforming. I wonder why. Storm Whip is an excellent example here, as its previous damage potential strongly underperformed, meaning few players chose this mod over other better alternatives. I'm sorry to break it to you developers, but if you have two mods, one's better than the other, what player in the world is going to use the more underperforming mod? Like, this is the most stupid thing they have done to date. Every single thing they write contradicts itself in the following sentence. Whilst originally developing the OG, so the original Outriders mod experience, they've envisioned that players would ensure that both of their weapons have fundamentally different mods, because, you know, they don't want players having freedom, they have visions for how the people are going to play their own game. These would allow them to deal with and tackle different scenarios and encounters using a variety of weapons and methods. And that brings us to pillars B and C. They said, "We believe and think that you'll agree that the current meta that involves B and C has fundamentally stifled the need to run anything else. There is little incentive to experiment with other mods when these will always be more powerful." So, Moaning Winds and the quick cycling meta. It is like the title of a bloody storybook. Moaning Winds is one of the most dominant active mods currently in use. Well, yeah, it's a really good mod. For anyone unaware, one of the most potent mod setups in the game right now is to stack the Moaning Winds mod on multiple weapons and empty your mags. Then you run into a clump of enemies and cycle through your weapons, triggering this on reload mod and its substantial damage multiple times in a very short space of time. Some players are able to trigger Moaning Winds 3 times in the space of a 2-second window. This combo is especially effective in single player, where enemies cluster around a single target rather than 2 or 3 players. Well done. And note that the above is oversimplified, but the intent is to mainly explain the concept. Moaning Winds is therefore vastly outperforming its intended potential, making it one of the best active damage mods in the game, while also inviting a rather unorthodox playstyle, because, you know, they designed this game for people to play a certain way. A single Moaning Winds mod by itself isn't necessarily a huge problem. It's mainly the double and triple stacking of it that is causing an unnatural shift in expected playstyles. You cannot expect your players to play a certain fucking way. People have bought this game, it's PvE only, let people play how they want to play. If you want to run 5 lots of Moaning Winds, if it was possible, then run 5. If you don't want to touch another mod in the game, don't touch it. You can't fix the game, the servers are shit. There have been game-breaking issues that have lasted months and months on end, and you're wanting to focus on nerfs. Unacceptable. People paid £60 for this game. You shouldn't be focusing on nerfs over fixing the game and releasing new content for players to experience. This game is struggling to hit 1,200 concurrent players in a 24-hour window on Steam, and it's been out for 5 months. Just let that settle in. So overall, Moaning Winds is a big topic and deserves its own discussion thread, which we will open in the future, along with historical context about how Moaning Winds came to be, because everyone wants to know the lore and the story behind a fucking mod. Then we move into Pillar C, which is Fortress, and this is probably going to piss a lot of players off too. I mean, some of the players that are still remaining on the game. The third and by far most problematic pillar is C, the Fortress mod. The way it currently works usually provides a passive and consistent 43% damage increase to damage the player inflicts. In essence, take your normal damage and apply the calculation of times 1.43 to it. That's it, that's the mod. No gameplay loop, kill or damage event or special situation required. And I'd just like to say, testing these mods would have been so they could balance it before they released the game. But no, they released Fortress how it is, they released Moaning Winds how it is. They even released Ultimate Storm Whip, and they've had to go and buff it by 140%. They released Strings of Gorse and had its damage increased by 262% because of how badly they fucking implemented it. This is down to them not balancing, not testing the game. They have these worldwide QA teams, and they haven't done their jobs. In the current DPS-oriented endgame, so there you go, the entire endgame is a DPS check. Everyone that's played this game knows that because you're based on time. You have to get through these missions as quickly as possible, and the fastest way to kill enemies is have a high DPS, damage per second. You just take out enemies faster the higher your DPS. But in the DPS-oriented endgame, all players will naturally be trying to maximise the damage they are able to output. Well, yeah, no shit. So the existence of Fortress in its current form essentially blocks a mod slot. Well, no, it uses a mod slot because it's a mod and people want to use that mod, so it doesn't block anything. By not combining Fortress with your chosen primary mod, you may well be sacrificing DPS. Well, no, because you're getting a 43% increase, which is a philosophical question we're not comfortable with you needing to face. But you're putting nerf ideas out there that you're expecting your player base to be comfortable with facing. We want you to have a free choice of multiple different combinations without feeling that you're missing out because you didn't choose Fortress. So what about wanting us to have a free choice of what we want to use in the game? You haven't thought about that one though, have you? We also continue to be very aware that a timer-based endgame is part of the problem in that it forces a DPS-oriented build rather than a survival or just pure fun build. Well, you structured your entire endgame around it, so I'm glad you know. I'm glad you understand. These are the current challenges that we believe the Outriders weapon mod meta is facing today. Today's buffs are only the first steps to remedying the situation, and we are starting with a partial look at Pillar A. We will discuss Pillars B and C, so Moaning Winds and Fortress, and the best ways to tackle them in future. Note that we are also working on changes to certain underutilized legendary armor sets, because you know, there is no balance in Outriders. However, as these changes will also require code work, we'll talk more about them closer to their release. So, they don't go up for discussion. The legendary armor sets, they don't care what the community think about those. It's just the mods and how fast people can get through the content in the game that they want to get the community involved with. And that's what I mean. They're putting, phrases out there, expected playstyles. They've added FOMO into it, the fear of missing out. What are you missing out on because you chose Fortress? You're gaining 43% extra fucking damage. How stupid do you have to be to think there's FOMO in running a mod in this game, like Fortress? There isn't. This is the most ridiculous thing they've done. And they've done a lot of stupid stuff. They shouldn't even be talking nerfs. It's a PvE only game. If anything, and this stuff requires code work, so if anything, buff up the stuff that you want other players to use and make it powerful enough so that other players use it. That's a win-win. Players don't get annoyed because you're not nerfing, and other stuff in your game becomes viable because you've buffed it and people now want to use it because it's strong. We don't deserve nerfs. It's not our fucking fault that they haven't balanced the game properly. It's not our fault that gamers are smart and we figure out the best way to do things. There are so many problems in this game, and out of a developer news, a weekly update about stuff that's going on in the game, their main focus is stuff that's not even right now going to happen. It is stuff they want to talk about for possibilities in the future. Well, fuck all that off. Talk about your DLC. If you're talking about things that are going to happen in the future, talk about new content that's going to be coming into the game in the future. But don't you dare mention about Tiago having rotating stock and that being new content, because that's just as bad as this is. Honestly, this game is so laughable. So laughable. But what I'm going to do is leave the video there. Let me know all of your thoughts and stuff in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. I hope you guys enjoyed it.